This is intended for a mature audience only. Bitches.
Welcome, my fellow deviants, to Raw and Uncut. I am Randy.
I'm Meg.
I'm Izzy.
You're
Yeah, Izzy.
He is on his first smash,
man.
y'all. So bear with us.
Yeah.
Let's see where this goes tonight.
Yes.
For those of you just joining us for the first time, this is a podcast of three friends pushing the boundaries of social norms and bringing them to you. So if you haven't, go back and listen to the other episodes. Catch up with us.
So much fun content. You know you want to do it. Get deeper.
I don't know that we have any cleanup this week, do we?
Bitch, I'm always clean.
Our friend Adam is not with us.
Right? No.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
We miss him. He'll be back, though. He'll come back.
Yeah.
Sausage.
Right? Ugh.
Yeah.
You know how many people came up to me and said something about sausage? And how they'll never eat sausage gravy again. Before we get started on the episode today, I want to wish everyone a happy Pride. Yay! So get out there and push those boundaries. I know that I will be.
Yes. How so?
I will be. I'm probably going to go up to Pride Parade this year.
Nice,
And
nice.
that's definitely pushing boundaries. I mean, everybody unleashes the freak.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to go with me this year yet, though.
Oh, yeah. I wish I could go.
So it's always fun. Always fun to go to Pride.
Yeah.
So, all right. So for this episode, we're going to be using the safe word Twix. Is that the one that's like 2 for you, none for what? How's that?
Yeah.
go?
2 for you, none, or 2 for me, none for
That's
you.
right. 2 for me, none for you.
Yep.
Wow.
Left and right.
Which are you? Are you a left or a right?
I use both.
See, I'm a right.
Lefty.
Yeah. I'm primarily lefty. If I use my right, I go backwards though.
You go backwards?
Yeah, like this.
I don't. Yeah.
You a little ill. He did the jerk off motion for people that cannot see.
Yeah. So, all right, we're gonna dive into the topic.
Okay.
All right. This is
Yes.
We're gonna break our own kind of norm for our episodes in this episode. Normally our shows are very lighthearted, comical on our shows. We tell a lot of jokes and goof around and stuff. However, this episode's going to take kind of a more of a serious and informative nature. We're going to be talking about STIs, or sexually transmitted infections. Sexually transmitted infections, a lot of people have heard them in the past. They've been referred to as sexually transmitted diseases, right? It's not an term that is used as widely anymore. The more accurate term is STI, or sexually transmitted infection. And it's the reason for that is because STIs have less political baggage associated with them and less historical baggage.
Yeah.
Usually when somebody says an STD, they think of a disease, something that, is permanent. And STIs are not permanent, right? So throughout history, and especially within Western culture, there's been that negative connotation that's been built around STDs and anything that refers to sex or even sexuality at all, and then you get deeper into it when it comes to STIs. So, there's that ingrained belief that, when it comes to sex and sexuality, it's a moral issue, it's a religious issue, which can lead to, some people to believe that STIs, or the diagnosis of an STI, it reflects poorly on their character, and that's not the case.
Not just that, excuse the protection around it too, like condoms, the view on condoms and how to use condoms, because it blurs the having that conversation.
Exactly. And so, when it comes to STIs, and because of this, baggage that's been built around it, and this, culture, I should say, that has historically been built around STIs, there's also a lot of shame and guilt that come along with it.
Yeah.
And, which also prevents people from getting tested, even, something as simple as getting tested.
Mm-hmm.
People are afraid to go get tested, even if they're just doing a normal checkup testing, because they're worried about how their doctors are going to view them.
Yeah.
And how their friends are going to view them if they say, I'm going to get my annual checkup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they, because there's automatically this culture built around testing, even that if I'm getting tested, I must have frequent sex,
Mhm.
which is not the case.
Yeah, you get, because I've heard stories of people with HIV,
Mm-hmm.
and immediately it's like the stigma behind it was like you got HIV because you were whoring around.
Exactly. And that's
And
not
it's
the
like,
case.
A lot of their stories don't involve like them just going around sleeping around.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But you may continue.
And then to take it even one step further, that culture has built that shame and that guilt around them having conversation with their partners.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say having that conversation with their partners, we're talking about people who are experiencing an STI and they have an STI, and then for them to turn around and have that conversation with their partner, now it becomes an even more shameful and guilt-ridden conversation that they just don't like to have because of the way it's been stigmatized over the years.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of, it goes back to what you were just saying a second ago, is like it's important to note that there's no certain type of individual that can contract an STI. In fact, it's incredibly common among everyone out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a lot of talking with my hands. I don't know why.
Yeah. You're getting very into it.
And so it's very common out there among people, and you don't have to actually have sex to contract STIs.
Nope.
It's like a blood to blood situation, right?
It could be. It could be any fluid, though.
Mm-hmm.
So spit.
Enough of it.
Okay, we're gonna dive onto that.
So, and like you were saying, anyone out there having unsafe sex is susceptible, and even in a committed and exclusive relationship.
Oh yeah, and sometimes it doesn't even show symptoms like gonorrhea.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've heard stories of people getting it in their throat, and the doctors, doing the checkup and all of that, and they're like, "Yep, you got it."
Right. And so, prior to me being in law enforcement, I worked in the medical field and in the nursing field, and used to get a lot of people who come in and complain about, I've got a cough. And I think they have an upper respiratory infection. And then turns out they have like gonorrhea in the throat.
Yeah. And I can see how that can be super embarrassing to go to the doctors, and they're like, now they're looking at you like you've been sucking dick or something.
Exactly. And the unfortunate thing behind that is then you end up with the people who have a little bit of knowledge and they realize what it is, and they don't go to the doctor right away because they are,
it's the fear,
ashamed and stuff like that about how, what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all because of the stigma that culture has built around STIs, So there's this big push to break away from the ingrained culture of calling them STDs and push towards calling them STIs, a sexually transmitted infection, to help change the way we think about our sexual health and well-being. That way we don't have this ingrained stigma around it, which allows us as human beings to build a healthier relationship in our own mind when it comes to getting tested and making sure that we are, safe and well taken care of. Okay. So to go into a little more detail about actually how common STIs are, many people believe that STIs are simply spread through sexual contact, just kind of what we were just talking about, right, Izzy? But in fact, there's so many other ways that you can come across this illness. there's the viruses and the bacteria and stuff. STIs such as like HPV, monkeypox, genital warts, that's all can be spread through casual contact.
Yes.
So even HIV can be spread through breast milk, semen, and vaginal fluid.
Can syphilis, if you get that breakout?
Yep. So, so it's just to show that, there's more ways to contact an STI than just out there, like you were saying, that stigma of out there whoring around.
Yeah.
You can get it through pre-cum, certain ones, and so they think, oh, I'm safe because it's just pre-cum. Not really. It just depends on.
Because they pulled out. I hear that a lot too.
Yep.
Like if I pull out, it's okay.
So I'm not going to jump too far down the rabbit hole about how common they are, the STIs are, but I will say, I'll just touch bases that the World Health Organization says that there's over 1 million STIs are acquired every day, and that a majority of them are asymptomatic.
Okay.
So that just goes to show you there's quite a few people out there that do contract them. Each year there's an estimated 374 million new infections, with 1 of 4 curable STIs such as chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, and trichomoniasis. Say that 10 times fast.
Trichomoniasis.
So, but there are also STIs out there that are incurable, but they are manageable, and that's the thing that you got to realize is even if they're incurable, they are manageable. It's not the death sentence that everybody's used to hearing about back in the early 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s. They are manageable, like hepatitis, herpes, HIV, and HPV. So you can't get rid of them, but we can manage them.
It. Yeah.
So, and that management starts with prevention, right? So, and how do you, when we're talking about prevention, and we've all been in relationships and not even just relationships, but hookups situations. So how do you address the topic of protected sex with your partner?
Wait, are we talking about hookups or
Either
one?
Either one.
I feel like hookups, it should be automatic. There's going to be protection. And I know there are people that like it bare. Like they'll put it on their profile and dating profiles and things like that. But my approach is like, you are a complete stranger. I'm not going to risk it.
Right.
Like, I just don't know. You could be lying to me. Whether you tell me, oh, I got tested, I'm clean, whatever. Like, just as a security blanket, I'm going to put the condom and I'm going to use PrEP. Like, that's my thing. In a relationship, now that's where it gets, there's this gray area, because I've heard horror stories of this. Like, there's this desire of being like trusted,
right?
Like taking off the condom or not even using PrEP. Like, why are you using PrEP if we're in a committed relationship? But then I've heard stories of people getting cheated on, and then because that other person cheated, they ended up with an STI.
Right.
So that could be a difficult one, the relationship one.
And so that brings up a good question, and we'll get back to you. Don't think you got out of this. But that brings up a good question with you when you bring up PrEP, is that, there's this big, I don't want to say it's a big push, but there is this, an understanding among some people out there, if I'm on PrEP, I'm safe.
Oh,
and so I can do whatever I want, and the question, and it's not to shame anyone, right? Because you are taking those steps to, for protection and stuff like that. But you have to think about PrEP is just for one STI.
Yes.
And so, there's still many, many other STIs out there that PrEP does not protect you against.
Yeah, and I've come across people that think that PrEP is like the ultimate shield, essentially. Like, they completely forget that there are so many other things you can end up contracting. Like
Right.
it's not just HIV, dude. Or they expect you to go bare because you're using PrEP. It's like
Exactly. And it's
no.
funny. It's funny you say that because we have a friend that actually said something to me not too long ago about how they're seeing this new guy. And they've had the conversation about sex and protection and stuff like that. And the other guy just automatically assumed that he was okay with being unprotected sex because they were on PrEP. And it's like, no, they still having protected sex, you know? And kudos to this guy out there because this guy was actually into the fact that it was protected, you know, wanting it to be protected. But it's just that you come across people so much anymore because PrEP is now being more prevalent out there that, you know, again, it goes back to I'm on PrEP, I'm okay, I can do whatever I want. And that's not the case. So, you know, and so like I said, kudos to that guy because, you know, he was wanting protected sex. It's just he's used to people being like, oh, I'm on PrEP, I'm good, we can do whatever you want. So, you know. So what about you, Meg?
I am not a great role model for this answer.
She likes to play with it.
I through my job, I get tested regularly because I am exposed to blood often.
Really?
So because of that, I have regular testings and some other stuff that we'll get into here in just a minute. But I historically have done. I'm not a condom, and the reason mostly for me that I don't do condoms is because it's very painful for me. I have a situation that I'm very narrow, and because of that, it's very hard.
And there's things out there that are reasons that like people can't use condoms, and there's guys out there that are allergic to latex and stuff like that.
No, I've come across the guy that they're like, when I put a condom on, I get soft, like it's just goes dead, and I'm looking at them like, yes, it does. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody
why are
like
you smirking over there? Are you one of those men?
Didn't
Randy.
So I mean, like I said, so you know, there are reasons out there that some people don't like to use condoms. You know,
sorry, I was choking on my smash.
So, but I mean, it's having that conversation with your partners.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Before I took every partner, I made sure they understood that I have had unprotected sex several times, and I always had my current results there in case they did want to view, because I think that's a responsible thing to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I've had conversations with people like, that's an awkward situation too, asking for results. It's so nice when a person is just open about it and be like, oh, by the way, I have my most recent results and blah blah, like open that dialogue. But I still don't know how to go about it. Like it's always like an awkward motion.
And that's what we're talking about here, is having this conversation with your partner. How do you go about that?
Yeah.
You know, and so and primarily that conversation is awkward because of the stigma that has been built around STIs.
Yeah.
You know, and because of that stigma, people don't want to talk about it. People don't want to get tested. You know.
Yeah, and then they feel some type of way because then, like, there are those that do get tested regularly, and I feel like those are the ones that are more open about it. But the ones that have been like, it's been a while, they're more reserved about it.
Right.
Whether
I think there's kind of two, because there's been times when, you know, I'm open about the conversation. You're right. I have no problem telling people, yes, I get tested regularly. But then sometimes those people are like, you get tested regularly? What's going on? And then I have to go back and explain to them, yes, I do, because for my job and I'm being safe and I want my family and my friends to be safe. So yeah.
You know, like you said, we'll get into testing in a bit.
Yeah.
You know, we got a section we're going to talk about testing, but that's what. So I actually started prep because prior to being in law enforcement, like I said, I was in the medical field and nursing, and I got stuck with a dirty needle, and so I got started on the what they call it the post-exposure prophylactic, which wreaks havoc on your system. I will tell you that. But and so then after that I started prep, you know, and so when I started prep, it was not as prevalent as it is now. They didn't do like the at-home testing and all that, right? You had to go see a doctor.
Yeah.
I should have a swab in my butt. You got to do it.
And so then, you know, you had to get tested every 3 months when you started it. And it's so, you know, and so you would be like, okay, I'm going to get tested. And people were like, wait, why are you getting tested?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, but here's a conversation that how do you have a conversation with somebody like you say, like you get tested regularly, right? And let's say, for example, you're talking to somebody and you got tested a month ago and they're like, okay, have you had sex with anybody since then? How do you approach that?
I just told them the truth. I'd say yes or no. I mean,
yeah, you just got to be flat out open with it.
So, you know, if you're planning to have an unprotected sex with somebody and you've been tested and then, but you had unprotected sex with somebody since you got tested, how do you like?
Oh, so in between, like those results become invalid the moment you start having sex with other people.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Ooh. I can't really speak honestly on that because usually I get tested and stuff regularly, but I don't be having sex so often because it's like I'd be dry. The pool be dry. I'm trying. But so it's like I would just flat out tell them, like, especially if they're giving me feedback too as well. They're being honest and open with me about their results. They deserve that back too. Like I'm not gonna lie or try to play with them or anything like that. And I know I get tested regularly. Hey, this is my situation. Like you were saying, the prep, you got to get tested like every 3 months. So it's like, I'm just, between that, I had sex with someone. And that question always does come up, actually, like if you're on Grindr or whatever. I do pop that question of like, when was the last time you had sex?
Right.
And then they have their results, like when the last time they were tested on their page. But even then, I'm still thinking I'm on prep. I'm going to use other protections and things like that. But it's just knowing. And then they ask me back because it's like, how about you?
Right.
Kind of situation. It's a trade-off when you ask that question.
Yeah.
Kill that spider. Kill it. Ah!
There is a spider in the set here, and Izzy is afraid of spiders.
And then you're just going to leave it there?
Yeah.
You just squish the buddy and just...
It's a memento for you.
Oh my God, just like the pillow.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it is hard to have that conversation with your partner. But, I mean, when you're having I'll be honest with you. I find it easy to have that conversation.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I don't have a hard time having that conversation of protected, unprotected.
Have you ever had people
testing.
like be abrasive about it? Because I've had people like get like offended almost.
In what regard?
Like
having to
asking for results, or or just being forward about it. The last time you had sex and things like that, and all of a sudden they're like,
I mean, I've never had anybody be abrasive about it.
Okay.
No. I mean, and like I said, I think that's...
My ass be getting blocked.
Why? Because you asked if they got tested?
Yeah, no, just being open about it. Like, it's so hard to like tiptoe around that. So inevitably you ask.
Right.
Or you just, here it is. And I had people I would assume, offended about it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they do get offended. I mean, there are people out there that do.
Sure.
There are people out there that don't.
It's because they still, they still make the 2 and 2. Well, why should I be getting tested? It's an STD,
Yeah, like
it's all the negativity.
Right.
It's just about breaking that negative connotation on the word, on what it is.
Exactly.
And
so,
it's going to be around for a while. I'm sorry, everybody, but it's going to take time.
It's going to take time. It is, but it's changing.
Yeah.
So, I guess the next topic only you can answer because neither of us have kids. So, not to put you on the spot.
Out there.
How do you have this discussion with your kid?
So I can tell, growing up, sex was a taboo conversation, so we didn't.
I never had that conversation.
I learned about sex in health ed class.
Yeah, that's where I learned
school,
too.
and most high schools do.
The miracle of
and
life.
then trial and error.
Yeah, most people do. But for me, when when he started showing signs of interest in women, I sat down with him. I said, listen, this is going to be uncomfortable, but I need to explain. You need to understand. And if you have questions, you need to come to me about this stuff. So, it's not an easy conversation. It can be embarrassing for them. It can be embarrassing for you. But I wanted him to be smart and have all the information he needed so he could make the right decision for him. Yeah. And if I gave him all that information and he decided to do whatever he wants to do, then that's on him at that point. But I could do all that I do. My job as a parent is to teach. I taught. Whether he passes or fails the test is, one of those lifelong things.
Right.
Who knows? Yeah. But it's not easy.
Yeah, and you showed him that the door is open as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would assume it's probably a little bit less easy being a single parent.
Yeah. Not having, especially since my child is male, not having, necessarily another male to talk about some of these, growing into things.
Right.
Was not as easy. I mean, there's been some times where, I reached out to male friends and been like, hey, I kind of need, how do I go about this one and not, make it even more awkward for him, because my biggest thing is, parents say, well, they're learning about it in health class. I'm like, yeah, they're learning the basics.
But there's places where they want to roll that back too.
Yes.
Like they don't want to talk about it.
And exactly. And then you get the teacher that teaches it this way and the teacher that teaches it that way.
And I think it's great to
and
start.
It's just that check in the box.
Yeah. But parents, I am a firm believer of an open conversation. It might be awkward, but the more they know, the better off and prepared they're going to be. And that's how, when I had that conversation with him. I mean, there's still times, he'll come to me and ask me questions. Well, I heard about this. What's this? And that makes me feel good because he heard me. He might not listen, but he heard me.
Oh man.
So yeah.
Well, that's good. So it's just important to remember for our listeners out there, deviants, that there are different methods of protection. Yes. It's not just, you do have condoms, right? Yep. But there's vaccines out there. There's, the pre-exposure prep, and stuff like that.
And you need the knowledge to have that person, because condoms are out there and stuff like that. I wish I had. Like my mom would have told me all about this. Like it was like I had to discover it all on my own situation.
The condom and the banana situation. It was awkward, but I grabbed that damn banana. I opened up that condom and I made him stick it on there.
Oh man!
While you held it?
No.
Oh. I was going to say that would make it even more awkward.
No.
I
let him do that. I just stood there in case he had questions.
Talk about going soft, putting a condom on from that point.
God. That explains a lot.
Right? So, we've already kind of talked about testing, right? And we're going to get into a little bit more. But again, we keep going back to the stigma that's been placed on it, the discussion of STIs, including the topics of, and even the actions of getting tested. Everybody puts these stigmas on STIs. And, even whether you have an STI or you don't have an STI, there's a stigma on the whole topic in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, STIs, again, are often asymptomatic. So it's important to get tested. And so even when symptoms do occur, right, not all the time are they specific to that STI. They can mirror other
you can
illnesses.
have a headache, backache, whatever.
Exactly.
It could be very like benign almost, and not even realize what it truly is.
Exactly. And so, so a lot of times, individuals will go to their doctor, they'll get tested for, I'm having this issue, and they won't be completely honest with their healthcare provider because of the stigma that's around STIs. So they're not being honest about their
sexual history
and contact. And so now,
and the type of sexual acts too.
Exactly. And so now these doctors are out there and they're misdiagnosing things because you aren't being honest with them. And that all comes back to that unwillingness to have that conversation, and that stigma that has been built around STIs. But, I will say that one of the things that I'm glad for COVID, I guess I should say, is that there has been a huge push in telehealth. And so, with the progression in science and in medicine, now they have all these telehealths, right?
Yes.
So you can actually do your testing in the comfort of your own home.
I love it.
And the conversation you're having with your doctor is in your home and your comfort level.
Yeah.
And so you don't even have to have that conversation on the phone. It can be done through text messaging, which makes it even nicer.
It's the convenience. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Especially, talking about STI, excuse me, testing. Now you can do it at home.
Right.
It's so nice.
Yep. So there's at-home testing, which like I said, you can do from the comfort. They send it to you in the mail. You do it, everything in the kit. You box it back up and you send it back to them.
Give them some blood, some urine, and swab that booty hole.
And so, so there's sites out there, for our listeners out there, like Mr. That's MISTR.
That's the one I'm on.
They'll send you your at-home kit and you can complete it, send it back to them, and they'll get your results to you.
Super easy. Pricking though,
pricking your finger for the blood.
I can't do it myself.
So they'll set up your own little patient portal for you, so that way you can review your results, talk to your doctor, and they will even work with you to get on the pre-exposure medication and work with your insurances.
That's nice.
So
you video chat with the doctor, all your questions are answered there.
Exactly. And again, it's from the comfort of your home. So you don't have somebody looking at you like, why are you going into the doctor every 3 months?
Yeah.
So
not just that, it's convenient. The
Yeah.
hassle is gone.
Exactly.
The
So,
excuses diminish.
let's start erasing that stigma.
Yep.
Is what I'm saying. Let's start erasing that stigma that starts with us. And that's kind of what our podcast is about, pushing those boundaries. There's stigmas around every boundary that we talk about.
Yep.
Whether it's a small stigma or a large stigma, but there's a stigma built around this that should not be there, regardless of what your thoughts are. Right? So let's start getting rid of that stigma. So we're going to kind of switch gears a little, and we're going to talk about living with an STI.
Yep.
All right. So when have you ever had anyone have a conversation with you who has an STI that is wanting to be either in a relationship with you or even in a hookup situation?
Well, in the dating world, I've come across people that had HIV. They were undetectable. And it's almost like it's pretty sad because they have similar stories of the difficulty of dating in itself, because they immediately get blocked. And then here's me coming along where I'm like more open to the situation and dating. And they give me a story. The most the most common one, because I don't ask them, I don't tell them, hey, how did you get HIV and things like that. And they'll say that's usually the first thing people come at them at, like, how did you get HIV, things like that. And then they get blocked after their story. They would come to me and let me know, hey, I'm HIV positive, I'm undetectable. And then I'll be like, no, that's fine, whatever, we'll continue discussing. And I let it play out the way they want to play it out. If they want to discuss how, how it happened, what was the situation behind it, it's up to them. But for me, I don't really care as long as you're taking your medication, as long as you respect my boundaries when it comes to safety. Like if I'm wearing a condom, you better not feel offended, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you're undetectable or not, that's a me thing, kind of thing.
Right.
Whether I'm taking PrEP, all of that. Anyway, but I've come across one individual whose story really stuck out to me because you can just see the exhaustion of it, the sadness of it, where he opened up and told me, one, like how the stigma is still there. I mean, we're talking about, this is not, early 2000s, whatever. This is
right.
This is nowadays, right? So he's telling me his story of, he was married to a guy. They were married for years. Towards the end, I'm keeping it short. There was signs that, it was starting to fall apart almost, guy disappearing, whatever. They were still having sex, unprotected sex. And that's how that guy ended up randomly calling him from the hospital or whatever clinic he was in or whatever situation to tell him that he ended up contracting HIV, that he should get tested too. And then he got tested and figured, he ended up with HIV. And that's how he ended up getting it. And, he's emotional about it. He's like, yeah, now I'm, stuck with this essentially. And wherever I go, I'm immediately blocked, or that's what they see first before they see my personality, who I am, all of this stuff. And unfortunately, that's not the first story I've heard of that. Like, I've talked to other people with HIV that they open up and tell me, I was dating this guy. It was cool between us. And I didn't know what they were doing behind the scenes. And then that person ended up telling the guy, hey, I had HIV and you should get tested. Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, you hear that story so much, and I've been approached by people who are HIV positive, and now that they're, there's also a push out there that's, undetectable is untransmittable, because if they're on their medication and it's at such a low enough rate, they cannot transmit the HIV virus. And so that's another stigma that is trying to be eradicated, is like, yeah, okay, we can't get rid of HIV, but we can manage it to the point where it's not an issue.
Yeah.
And so, yes, and it's like you said, in those situations, you still want to have protection. You still want to do the things that you would normally do with anyone in that matter. Not just because they're undetectable. It's even if you were HIV negative, we'd still be having these protections. And so you hear these stories so much, and it's heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching, I guess you could say, because they're people, and it's so...
Yeah, and you hear it's pretty much mistreatment.
Exactly, and one of my best friends is HIV positive, and, he's the greatest person you'll ever know, and I watch him go through the struggles of it, and I hear the stories and stuff like that. And, I can't imagine the struggle we're not hearing.
Yeah.
You know? And I love him to death, but, and I'm there for you.
Yeah.
That's all I can say, is that I'll always be there for him. So, you have anything?
Yeah. So, it was a few years ago. Me and my current relationship, we've been together years, and I knew he was cheating, but I had hoped he was smart cheating. He was not. Something I went to the doctor for something. I totally random, and ended up coming back, and I was positive for HPV. I had no idea what this word was. I had never heard it before in my life. I'm like, I don't understand what that means. The doctor's like, this is how you get it. At that point, they called it STDs. And I was like, I don't understand. I didn't do anything. Totally like not even thinking that it actually came from him. And because males don't show a whole lot of symptoms when they have the HPV virus. And when I told him, because I hadn't been with anybody, so I knew it wasn't me, that he had it and that his other we were not together, we were not okay. But I called him and I said, listen, you gave me this. You're not going to understand. You're not going to feel any different. And nothing's going to come up. But you need to call your other partners and tell them you gave them this too.
Right.
He completely told me I was lying. Did all this other stuff.
Oh no!
Because he was in denial just as much. And so I ended up getting treated. For anything more than anything, it was just terrifying. Like, what is this going to do to me? HPV does lead to cervical cancer. So, I was thinking, at what point in this virus does it get to there? So I had to do all my research. And I ended up freaking myself out way more than I needed to. And it was mostly because of the stigma.
It is. And I'll attest to that. You know, you do research and stuff like that, and you see so much more.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it just makes things.
Yeah, you spiral, you go into this negative mode.
Yeah. No, I was cleared. I don't know the proper terminology for it, but I'm fine. I don't have anything scary or anything like that. But even if that one instance of that, I still tell everybody. I tell my partners because I'm one of those believers. Is it really gone?
Is it?
Well, and so here's
it goes dormant, right?
Yes. And so that's what I was just going to say. So living with HSV, which is the herpes simplex virus, it's dormant. You don't, and then you have outbreaks. And as long as it's dormant, you're not transmitting it.
Correct.
But there's shedding periods, aren't there?
There are. When it comes with HSV, yes, there is some shedding periods and stuff like that. And that's where you have to educate yourself and you have to know what's going on and when you can and can't and stuff like that. And even still with HSV, there's medication that you can take to shorten those windows. And so, and you got to learn how to manage it, like especially like with stress. Stress is a huge factor in HSV outbreaks. And so, you have to learn how to de-stress. And let things go. For a long time, I had a hard time with that. And stress was always an issue. And so, that I got into a point where it's like, I'm not going to worry about that, because when you do, then you have, issues.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yeah. So as soon as the medication, it was actually a shot, was developed and you took it over sometime.
So it's a vaccine kind of deal?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
There is a vaccine now.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily know that was a vaccine at the time.
No, I don't think it was a vaccine at the time. It was like a 3 or 4 dose trial. You had to go in at specific time frames to get it.
Okay.
But yeah, because, although it wasn't physically hurting me at that moment, that doesn't mean it could have changed. So, and I wanted my partner to feel safe. I wanted to be safe. So I ended up getting the whatever,
and so we talk about, living with STIs and stuff like that and everything like that. And, I will, I can tell the story about like where I've been exposed to it unknowingly, and so, there was a time where my partner, I was in that situation where my partner cheated on me,
It's a shame how common that is.
And I mean, I'm not going to get too deep into that story, but there's a whole backstory to it. So, but I understand.
Twix it.
Right. No. So, but, and so there was a time period where it's like, okay, you may have contracted an STI, and so you go through this whole depression phase. You go through this whole, like, let me look up everything I can on WebMD, and it just puts you further and further and further into darkness, and it's important to know for our listeners that you're not alone. There are people out there that are experiencing the same thing that you are, or there's people out there who have gone through the same thing you have. You're not alone. Reach out. There's support groups, there's forums, there's everything out there, and not having that at that time and not understanding that made things a lot worse, and so all I can say is, it's not a death sentence. Right. STIs, regardless of the ones that any of them, they're not a death sentence, and they are manageable. You can live with them and lead normal, healthy lives. So,
I'm sorry.
I think somebody was playing Monopoly Go.
No, I don't know what that was.
Oh,
it's a moment.
So, but yeah, I mean, live every day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to acknowledge that it is hard living with an STI. Like it's difficult. Like you said, you're not alone. There are people out there. You can easily fall into the abyss, especially when there's so many people giving you negativity, even in the dating world, constantly Xing you out there. But there are people there that they don't care. Like they see you for you.
Exactly.
Your personality, who you are as a human being. They're out there.
So, yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, that's the thing is to realize is that, just because there are people out there that are narrow-minded and still have that stigma built around it, doesn't mean that everybody out there is the same and has that same narrow-mindedness. Like I said, I personally have been in a situation where, I've been exposed, I've live with it, and I've been in that situation where I've had to have that conversation, and so it's doable. You can live life and you can be happy. So
it's hard. It's a hard road, but
there's support out there.
There's love.
So, well, that about wraps up this episode of Raw and Uncut, my fellow deviants. If you want to know more about our show or reach out to our hosts, you can head over to our website at rawanduncutcast.com. Look us up on Facebook or send us an email. rawanduncutcast@gmail.com, all one word. Be sure to follow and share us on your favorite platforms. And but before we go, just remember, humans created the stigma around STIs, and humans can remove it.
Yep.
And you are loved out there. So, as always,
love you all, guys.
Choose your safe word wisely.